sitting here eating pickles and thinking about California.
There you go.
Now, there's two things that go together.
Christine,
I like that.
I hope you're not pregnant.
People just a little insight into my life here.
I guess, are they sweet or dills? You got a gherkin?
No, they're dills.
Yeah. Of course, Dan Beaver is our resident fantasy racing expert and joins us every week. You can follow Dan on Twitter at Fantasy Race and read his insight on yahoosports.com and NASCAR.com. Dan's the director of fantasy racing at NASCAR.com, or at NASCAR.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just got to get those titles straight. You got a lot of titles. All right. So how'd you do at Bristol? I mean, your pick was pretty good.
Yeah, the pick was running well until Johnson blew that tire, and otherwise my B picks and my C did pretty good, and I won a couple of leagues in the NASCAR Fantasy Live game. So all in all, I was pretty happy. It was a fairly predictable race. I think it was a nice balance between some great competition with some side-by-side racing, and not a whole lot of carnage, except for a few drivers that probably really hurt, like Johnson, Gordon, Kenseth.
Tony Stewart.
Those drivers took down quite a few fantasy teams, I imagine.
Yeah, Tony Stewart. Is there a racetrack that's more predictable, easier to predict than California? Auto Club Speedway at what is it? Auto Club Speedway at Anaheim and Fontana or whatever. Oh, no, that's the baseball stadium.
Fontana.
Fontana.
Yeah, there we go.
Both 2 mile tracks, I think, are similar enough that even though we've only got one race at Auto Club, you can get a lot of insight from looking at Michigan.
Yeah.
Auto Club, I think, is banked at 14 degrees. Michigan's at 18 degrees. So they're close enough. They're both relatively flat. That the grooves are similar. The fact that Michigan's 2 races are run in the heat of the summer versus California this time of year makes it a little bit different. So you have to look at, if you're not getting a clear indication from how the drivers did on both tracks combined, you have to look at Auto Club specifically. And that will help you get identify some dark horses. I think your favorites have to come from those drivers that perform well on both tracks. So,
are the 2 mile tracks different enough, Dan, to where you look primarily at the data from those two and don't take in the other intermediate tracks, or are there a couple of intermediates that you kind of put in there with those 2 kind of flat 2 milers?
I've always looked at these 2 tracks just by themselves. And so that's become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. You look for patterns on these 2 tracks, you find them, and you might not go looking much further. Kentucky, I think, is also at 14 degrees now, and Chicagoland is at 18 degrees. So if you're going to look at 2 of the mile-and-a-half courses, those are probably the ones that you would want to look at. But the spreadsheets that I create each week so far, I haven't really combined those with this because I see those 2 tracks and Kansas as being the most similar among the cookie-cutter courses. So those are the 3. That's the group of 3 that I look at when I'm studying those courses.
Dan, you're only 4 races into this season. We've got 4 basically different tracks. You got to be using last year's statistics to come up with this stuff. Have you found so far that the new car has changed what you see from these first 4 races as to what you thought you might see?
Not really. Brad Keselowski came out of the gate strong. Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr. came out of the gate strong. And all 3 of them were also strong at the end of last year. If not for the melted bead, those 3 drivers would still have a sweep at the top 10. I think Earnhardt's a little bit surprising because he was consistently in the top 15 last year, but not consistently in the top 10. He's picked up his game, and that could be attributable to the new car, or it could be that he typically starts out a season strong, and this fits in that fits that criteria. So I don't think so. I think the new car is fine. I don't think I'll get fined. I hope not. I don't think it's all that much different than in terms of performance, I don't think it's all that much different from the car of tomorrow, but I didn't think there was really anything all that wrong with the car of tomorrow. You take the rules package that NASCAR gives you, and you have to figure out who's going to run strong with that rules package. And it's the same for us as it is for the drivers and teams.
There seemed to be more of a disparity, and I go back to Jimmy Johnson, who won all of his championships on the car of tomorrow with the wing, and once the wing went away, whether it was by coincidence or by a change of the dynamic of the car, he hasn't been as prolific as he was before the wing.
Maybe, but you really can't separate those things. It was his time. He was running well. It may have had something to do with the wing. It may just have to do with the fact that he just had so much momentum that he just steamrolled through those tracks where he normally would have struggled. For him, I think the last 10 races of the year are all on tracks where he was good no matter what. He was good before the car of tomorrow came on those tracks, and they didn't hurt him. Whereas some other drivers are a little more inconsistent on those 10 tracks, and that was the biggest problem. They had to learn not only how to run strong for those 10 weeks, but they had to pick up the performance on a couple of tracks where they traditionally struggle.
All right. Well, we've got a race to call here at Fontana at Auto Club Speedway. Dan, give us an overview of what your Yahoo teams are going to look like this week, and then we'll press you for a pick to win it.
Well, I got Jimmy Johnson ranked number 1 in Group A, and I know everybody's tired of hearing it, but until he stumbles, he's going to stay up there. On the 2-milers, or at Auto Club specifically, he's got a streak of top 10s going back to 2007, which is 10 races. Most of them have been top 5s, and he was running in the top 5 last year before he strained his engine at the very end of the race. And then the rain saved him, and he gets a top 10 finish. He gets a 10th place finish. So in NASCAR, you've got to be both lucky and good, and he's that. So I think strictly by the numbers, you've got to rank him first. However, I think a less likely driver in Group A who the competition might not have is Kevin Harvick. He's not particularly good at Michigan, but he's been great at Auto Club. He goes back. His top 10 streak goes all the way back to 2009. Not quite as long as Johnson's, but he's won more recently. He won the 2011 edition of this race, finished top 5 last year, finished second in the 2010 edition of this race. So if you go back to 2008, he's finished in the top 10 in all but one race. So if you're looking for someone to differentiate your roster, and that's a term I like to use a lot, Kevin Harvick is probably that driver because he's not going to be on a bunch of rosters. So if Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski stumble, he's going to be the guy who earns the most points, and he's going to be your chance to win your league. In Group B, Earnhardt wasn't particularly good on the 2-mile tracks for a long time, but he certainly seems to have stumbled into something last year. He had that emotional victory at Michigan, and he's one of only 2 drivers, I think, who swept to the top 10 last year. Actually, he might be the only driver who swept the top 10 last year on the 2-milers. Finished 3rd at Auto Club, 4th in the August Michigan race. So that, coupled with his top 10 streak now, I think almost guarantees that he's going to get another top 10 finish. Ryan Newman's had a hard start to the beginning of the season, but this is a place where he should be able to turn things around. He swept the top 10 on 2-mile tracks in 2011 with a 5th, 6th, and 5th. Last year he swept the top 15, and he has another 5th back in 2010. So he's got a 7-race streak of top 10s or top 15s, of which only one of those is outside of it. It's the top 15. So for him, that means there's not much downside if he doesn't stumble, if he gets the unless there's something going on where he's not getting the best equipment, because this could be his last season, then I think he's got a chance of easily getting a top 10 again. So those are my 2 Group B drivers.
You're looking at Danica in Group C, I would think.
No, I'm not looking at Danica this week.
Really?
Not until she gets some laps. She came out so strong at Daytona that the expectations raised so much.
Yeah.
And she's just not. She's having a hard time assimilating to the car and the tracks, and that's it's reasonable. There's nothing. It's no slam against Danica. I like her, and I think she's going to succeed, and I hope she succeeds. And she will be a go-to driver a little bit later, middle and end of the season. But right now, there's too much can go wrong, and she doesn't know how to overcome those problems when they occur. So she's going to hang around at the end of the lead lap, probably be a lap down when the race is over, and finish somewhere around 20th. But the driver who's got the potential of finishing the top 10 belongs to Cat in the Hat, and Roush is so strong on the 2-mile tracks that I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is just a no-brainer this week.
Yeah, I keep forgetting keep forgetting he's in C, which to me is, I don't know, that's a.
Well, he's in C because he's a rookie, and he's in C because only so many drivers will fit in Group B, and every year there's one or two of these drivers. I think Allmendinger is going to be that same kind of driver. He doesn't belong in C, but whenever we set the game up at the beginning of the year, we didn't know how many races he was going to run.
Right.
And you have to just guess at how strong the number 51 James Finch team was going to be. So Allmendinger and Smith, whenever they're in that car, I think they're at least they're one of your top 2 or 3 ranked drivers each time they're there, and they could easily be in B. We put Vickers in B this year for that reason, because he was so strong in C last year. Even though he's a part-timer, he belongs up there. But you just have to make a guess on the others, and really, who are you going to drop out?
Yeah, no,
Kurt Busch would be a good driver to have dropped out, maybe. But then again, he ran strong last week in the 78 car, which was a bit of a surprise. I figured he'd tear it out. But Almirola, Bobby Labonte, those drivers could be down in C, but they finished high enough in the points that you had to give them a little bit of a nod and put them in B.
All right, we'll put you on the spot. You got to pick a winner for Auto Club Speedway, the Auto Club 400.
I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit and say Kevin Harvick's going to win it. I think he's still got some momentum on his side. Short timer's disease has not yet struck, and he's racing in front of the home state crowd. I think he pulls off the victory this week.
And we'll have to talk about that short timer's disease as the season goes on. But I think Harvick's still looking strong. What do you think, Steve? Who's your pick?
Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch.
Oh my goodness!
This is a wild card race in my mind.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to slap myself back into reality. I'm going to take Jimmy Johnson. Who's your pick, Beth Ann?
I'm sorry?
We're asking Beth. Oh, Beth Ann's taking Ricky
Wow.
Stenhouse Jr. for the upset. All right, Dan. He is Dan Beaver. You can follow him on Twitter at Fantasy Race and read his terrific fantasy racing analysis at NASCAR.com and YahooSports.com. Dan, thanks for your time this week. Enjoy the weekend and the racing, and we will talk to you same time, same channel next week.
I'll be here.
All right, buddy. Dan Beaver.
All right, we're going to take a break. Our final